I would happily do a Saw in France. Let's go.
Vous allez vouloir rester conscient.
For those who don't know, can you tell us when Saw 10 happens in the Saw timeline?
It's between Saw 1 and 2. We don't ever really say if it's 1 month after Saw 1 or if it's 3 months, but that's in the general time. So we haven't met Eric Matthews yet from Saw 2.
John Kramer is back. That's the center of this movie. Did you ever regret killing John Kramer so early in the saga?
I've been angry at Darren Bowsman for like 16 years, for convincing us and begging us to kill John Kramer. All right.
I think everyone does, but at the same time, I think it really gave the trilogy of the first three films a lot of integrity, that they went ahead and said, this is only ever going to be 3 movies, and we're going to end by just killing everybody off. There was some bravery to that. I wish they weren't so brave.
John Kramer has almost become like the equalizer of horror, or the Punisher of horror in a sort of way. Would you agree with that?
Yes, except he doesn't truly, in his mind, he doesn't do it for revenge. He does it, well, you'd have to ask John Kramer, but he specifically says in this film, this is not retribution, it's a reawakening. I think John Kramer really believes that there's something that he's doing that is justified.
It's not retribution, it's a reawakening.
I saw in the US there were Saw vomit bags given at theaters. Did some audience really use them?
I've read user comments on the forums where people did throw up or pass out.
Yeah, there's definitely been parts where somebody felt like they were going to faint, and of course these vomit bags were out there, and I think they're like promotional items.
I just wish that these people that I've seen on the internet that say I had to run out of the theater, I wish that somehow that was on the news, because it's good publicity for a film like this.
What about the story of the police rushing to the edit room? Is that a true story?
It is a true story, and I even have the video from the security camera of the police coming up to the doorbell and my assistant editor answering and looking very embarrassed and saying, "Oh, I'm just editing a Saw movie," and the police just started laughing. It's really funny.
I would like to see it out in public.
I guess I need to talk to people. I was asked to take it down, but maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. It's time to play a game.
And do you remember casting Tobin Bell? How did it happen? What were you looking for at the time?
Tobin Bell is the heart and soul of Saw. We made the movie for, under $1 million. So we really wanted Brad Pitt, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. We had to find an actor that we thought was hugely talented, that would work for no money, because nobody got paid, and was willing to spend 8 days lying on a hard cement floor, pretending he was dead. And luckily for us, Tobin Bell said yes.
Saw has been going on for 20 years. How long do you still see it going?
Yeah, right.
When the fans stop coming, or Tobin Bell's unable to act. As long as those two things are happening, we'll continue to make Saw movies.
Do you know what the story is around Billy the puppet? How the idea came? What inspired this puppet?
Yes, I can say a little bit to that.
I want to play a game. Here's what happens if you lose.
I mean, obviously, James Wan came up with it for Saw 1. There's a movie from Dario Argento called Deep Red that came out in the 70s, and it's if you Google Deep Red puppet, you'll see. And he doesn't look particularly like Billy, but he's very creepy, and it's an amazing scene. I think that was maybe an influence on it, and then James himself built the puppet at his home in Australia at the time, and used it to make the short of before Saw 1, and then he used it in Saw 1 as well. So yeah, that's all James.
Live or die. The choice is yours.
Whenever Billy came on the set, he was like a superstar. For all our crew would love to take photos with Billy, and oftentimes we would call him Guillermo in Spanish, because that's Billy in Spanish. Guillermo.
The marketing department at Lionsgate has been doing really fun, amazing work with the Billy puppet in theaters and things like that. Their puppet is radio controlled and it does what you want it to. The one we shot with didn't have any motor, and we just were pulling it with fishing string, and it was all very sloppy.
You never had fans coming to you at Comic Cons or conventions with ideas for traps?
Yeah, but you know what? Here's
Always.
the problem. Oliver, you live in a different country. In the United States, especially California, someone would stop us for 30 seconds and said, this happens, this happens, this happens, and we'd be like, wow, that's great. And then I'd say, you know what? Let's try that. Like a year later, we're talking about it, and then we put it in the movie, and next thing you know, we're getting a lawsuit. So we don't take we're not allowed to take anything over the transom, over the counter. We'd love to. Where a great idea comes from. The fans have the best ideas, but
Yeah.
Are they traps you were never able to make because maybe they were too violent or too
We have a file of traps that, we kind of go, okay, it doesn't really work with the theme of this movie or where our
Yeah.
location. And, we've had traps from Saw 2 that we kept that, were in Saw 5. So it's getting harder and harder though to come up with traps. I will tell you that, and be creative and clever and, be able to make it a price. In Saw X, we went back to basics. We really thought our traps were getting too big, too over the top. They were like, no way Jigsaw could put this together.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make a movie where all the traps, pieces, and parts could come from a hardware store.
20 years ago, what made you decide we have to produce this movie? How did James Wan presented that project? Because he was a young filmmaker.
Ian Lee, as kind of their thesis at school, did a 7-minute short. And the 7-minute short was incredible. They had a great script to back it up. There was a bunch of reasons for Mark and I personally. We wanted to start making smaller movies and not working for studios.
How did producing a Saw movie evolve in 20 years?
The first one was shot in 18 days. We had no money. We had nothing. We had no trucks. We shot. Oren is the dead person on the ground that Shawnee Smith has to, get the key out of his stomach. I remember James wanting stuff, and we're like, oh, no, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. So we made it for no money. We got very, very lucky. James is hugely talented. Lee Wanell, hugely talented. And since then, the budgets have creeped up more and more. But a good story is a good story. And we spend all our time working on the script. We don't really focus on the traps till after we have a story completely finished. And that's how it all comes together.
Back when Saw 1 and Saw 2 came out, we were the little underdog indie movies. And now when people talk about it, we're this giant mega franchise, even though the budgets aren't that big. But now we're the bad guys because we're
you're number one in the box office.
So I guess that's the big difference.
How gross is the set sometimes when you're shooting? With especially with this episode, there's so much blood and and limbs and
It's a mess. It's a real mess, some of these scenes, and it's Anthony's job to have it all cleaned up so that we can do take 2 and take 3 and 4.
We had a team that would just clean up a lot of the blood and traps like that. You feel like you're in you really do feel like you're in a murder scene, kind of. It's so bloody. And all of the floor of the factory, we covered it with linoleum, and then we painted it so it looked fake concrete. And then we covered it with resin, and we did the same with all the traps. We would coat them with resin so they would be easily cleaned because, Kevin wants to do take 1, 2, 3, all of that. And we just needed to be ready.
I saw with Saw X, like Charlie Clouser, set a record.
So I want to make sure I say it right, and Oliver, correct me if I'm wrong. So he's composed series. He beat John's had 9 scores, and Charlie's now done 10.
Yeah, that's
what I heard. Yeah, someone told us that. Charlie is part of our crew, but not only that, especially like in Saw 1, the sounds and the feel and the vibe that he created were a character in the movie. We really, really, truly believe that Charlie adds characters to our movie, and any of the greats do. I mean, I still, when Interstellar comes on, when I'm driving my car, I can imagine the whole scene. So, but Charlie, for us, he's part of the gang. He's part of the process. He's part of everything. And I'm happy he broke John Williams' record. I don't think John Williams was worried about his record being broken.
No, I don't think so.
But Charlie's, you know what? He's a bad man in a good way.
Okay, well, my time is up. Well, merci beaucoup. Thanks a lot for this conversation. It's been terrific.
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
so
It was fun.
much.
Good, thank you for your support of the franchise.
Live or die, the choice is yours.